why most older adults fade after 80, and how you can be the exception. Let me ask you a simple question. Why do some people in their 80s still walk with energy, smile with purpose, and wake up each day eager to engage with life, while others, just a few years older or younger, quietly fade away? Most people will say it's genetics or maybe just luck, but after 40 years working in medicine, in hospitals, hospice units, and long-term care, I can tell you that answer is incomplete. What if the difference isn't what you think? In today's video, we're going to uncover 5 hidden reasons why most people struggle to live vibrantly past 80, and what separates those who slowly fade from those who continue to shine. These aren't the usual suspects. We're not talking about smoking, junk food, or a sedentary lifestyle. You already know those. I'm talking about the subtle, silent shifts, the ones that no blood test will catch, the ones that quietly change your biology without you realizing. Here's what I've come to believe after decades of listening to my patients. Not just their symptoms, but their stories. People don't fade because they hit a number. They fade because they've lost something we can't measure on a chart. A sense of connection, of motion, of mattering. Most seniors who decline in their 80s didn't suddenly become frail overnight. They didn't wake up with heart failure out of nowhere. Their fall didn't begin with a broken hip. It began long before that, in quieter ways. The day they stopped walking to the mailbox, the moment they stopped initiating conversation, the evening they closed the curtains and didn't open them again. And yet, the most hopeful part, those declines are not inevitable, they're reversible, and I'm going to show you how. And now, we're going to break down the 5 silent saboteurs of aging after 80. These are the reasons you, or someone you love, might be declining, and how to reverse that trend. Loss of microsocial interaction, overcautious physical inactivity, disrupted circadian rhythms from poor light exposure, unspoken grief, and emotional suppression, the slow erosion of daily purpose. Each one may seem small, but together they form a powerful pattern, one that affects your immune system, brain, muscles, and even your spirit. You'll hear stories of real seniors backed by science from Harvard, Mayo Clinic, NIH, and global aging studies. And at the end, I'll show you one simple daily ritual that I teach every patient who wants to live not just longer, but better. So stay with me, because what you're about to hear might just add years to your life and life. Aging is inevitable. Fading is not. Dr. M. L. Carter, geriatric medicine specialist. Part 1. The silent fade. You probably don't remember the last time you chatted with your barista or held the door for a stranger at the pharmacy, but your nervous system does. Microsocial engagement refers to the small, everyday interactions we have, not deep conversations with family, but saying good morning to a neighbor, laughing with a cashier at the grocery store, nodding to a jogger across the street, waving at the mail carrier. These seemingly trivial moments are not just social niceties, they are biological events that trigger oxytocin release, dopamine spikes, cortisol reduction, activation of the default mode network in the brain. Over decades, neuroscientists have studied the effects of social deprivation, not just isolation, but micro-level disconnection. What they found is startling. A 2021 study published in Nature Aging found that even brief daily interactions improve white matter integrity and reduce neuroinflammatory markers. And the opposite, prolonged lack of microsocial contact leads to atrophy of hippocampal networks, increased amygdala reactivity, higher levels of IL-6 and TNF-alpha, inflammatory cytokines tied to Alzheimer's, At 88, Mr. Richardson walked every single morning to the same corner cafe in Pittsburgh. He didn't go for the coffee, he went for the routine. Every day, he greeted Maria, the waitress. He asked the same two retired teachers at Table 3 about the news. He waved at the crossing guard. Then COVID hit. The cafe closed. Mr. Richardson didn't walk anymore. By month 3, he'd lost weight, became confused. His daughter told me, "It's like something shut down." She wasn't wrong. His brain was no longer receiving social nourishment, no cues to orient the day, no anchors to the outside world, no reminders. I exist, I matter, I'm still part of this. He passed away 8 months later, not from COVID, but from disconnection. When we stop engaging in small daily social interactions, the changes that occur inside the body and brain are both subtle and dangerous. Cortisol, the hormone released during stress, begins to rise steadily, not because of a crisis, but because the nervous system no longer receives signals of safety and connection. Oxytocin, the hormone associated with bonding and trust, also drops. This might not seem important at first, but over time, lower oxytocin levels make us more vulnerable to feelings of disconnection, loneliness, and even depression. Meanwhile, the brain itself begins to rewire. Without regular social stimulation, the growth of new neural pathways slows down. The production of brain-derived neurotrophic factor, or BDNF, a protein crucial for memory and learning, begins to fall. This is one of the reasons why older adults who are socially isolated often experience faster cognitive decline. Finally, vagal tone, a measure of how well the vagus nerve supports emotional regulation and heart health, weakens. The result? The body becomes more reactive to stress, less resilient to illness, and more prone to emotional flatness. So while the outside world may just see someone who's quiet or less active socially, inside their biology is shifting toward frailty and disengagement. Part 2. The price of playing it too safe. Why overcautious inactivity steals strength. Most people don't stop moving because they grow weak. They grow weak because they stop moving. It starts quietly, after a scare, a fall on the stairs, a stumble on the sidewalk, nothing broken, just a little shaken up, so they stop walking outdoors, avoid the stairs, spend more time sitting. They say things like, "I just don't want to risk it." And at first, it feels wise, cautious, responsible. But what seems like safety is actually the beginning of physical decline, because the human body, unlike a car, doesn't wear down from overuse. It wears down from disuse. Let's talk about the science of it. After the age of 30, we all begin to lose muscle mass, about 3 to 8% every decade. After 80, that process speeds up, and if you're inactive, it accelerates even more. The result? Sarcopenia, the loss of muscle mass and function, proprioceptive decline, weaker balance, slower reflexes, core muscle loss, which affects posture, walking, even breathing. A 2020 study in the Journal of Geriatric Physical Therapy showed that older adults who stopped regular movement, even briefly, experienced a 25 to 40% faster decline in physical ability than those who kept moving gently. Let me tell you about Walter. He was 82, tall, lively, sharp. Every evening he walked a mile around his neighborhood. It was his ritual, his way of staying clear. Then one rainy evening, he slipped. No fracture, just a scare. But it changed everything. He stopped walking, said it wasn't worth the risk, started watching more TV, stopped going out. 6 months later, he had lost 10 pounds of lean muscle, couldn't get out of a chair without help, began forgetting things, and felt down, withdrawn. His doctor wasn't surprised. When the body stops moving and strength starts vanishing, and the brain, The brain forgets how to command the body. See, mobility isn't just physical, it's neurological. Walking engages the cerebellum for coordination, the basal ganglia for initiating motion, the frontal cortex for planning steps. These areas shrink with disuse. Think of it this way: when you stop moving, you don't just lose strength, you lose access to movement itself. But here's the good news. You don't need marathons to regain mobility. Small, daily micro-movements make a massive difference. Just standing up every hour, reaching for a book on a high shelf, squatting to tie your shoes, walking to the mailbox, light yoga or Tai Chi. These micro-movements stimulate muscle memory balance circuits, cognitive alertness. They tell the brain, we're still using this body, keep it sharp. And yes, I understand fear. Fear of falling is real, but there are ways to move safely. Here's what I recommend in my clinic. Install handrails and grab bars. Use Nordic walking sticks. They're great for stability. Wear shoes with solid grip and support. Clear clutter from your walkways at home. Consider water aerobics or chair-based exercises. You don't need intensity. You need consistency. Movement doesn't have to be fast to be effective. It just has to be daily and intentional. Most people who live strong and independent past 85, they have one simple rule: never sit longer than 30 minutes without standing, even just to stretch, even just to shift weight. The body is always listening, and it remembers what it does often. If it remembers walking, it will keep walking. If it remembers sitting, it will forget how to stand. So here's my invitation to you. Get up. Even for a minute, walk the hallway, lift your arms, flex your ankles, because every motion you take is a message to your body. Part 3. The hidden role of light and sleep. Aging doesn't always begin in the muscles. Sometimes it begins in the dark. When your light cycles break down, so does your body. Inside each of us is a clock, not the kind you hang on the wall, but a biological rhythm that regulates everything from when we sleep to when we feel hungry, to how our cells repair themselves. It's called the circadian rhythm, and it's powered by light. This internal rhythm controls hormone levels, body temperature, immune function, digestion, cognitive alertness, and sleep quality. But after 80, this rhythm begins to break down. Why? Because we stop getting enough light, especially natural light, and we start getting too much of the wrong kind at the wrong time. We stay indoors. We watch television late into the night. We scroll our phones before bed. We sleep with hallway lights on. And the result? The body gets confused. It no longer knows when to rest or when to wake. In the morning, your brain needs bright, natural light. This signals the release of cortisol, a hormone that helps you feel alert and energized. It also suppresses melatonin, so you don't feel groggy. But in older adults, several things happen. The eyes become less sensitive to light, especially with cataracts. Skin becomes less efficient at synthesizing vitamin D. Outdoor time decreases dramatically. Now, fast forward to night. The lights stay on. The screen stays lit. The brain thinks it's still daytime. Melatonin never rises. Sleep becomes shallow and broken. The next day, you feel tired, foggy, down. You nap, which throws the cycle off again. And over time, this misalignment affects far more than just energy. It disrupts mood. It impairs memory. It weakens the immune system. And worst of all, it tells your body, don't repair, don't restore, because rest only happens when rhythm is in place. Let me share the story of Helen. She was 84. Her labs were normal, her diet impressive, but she felt exhausted, foggy, unmotivated. She wasn't sleeping well. Her doctor didn't prescribe pills. He prescribed light. Every morning, Helen sat near a sunny window for 20 minutes. In the evening, she dimmed the lights. No screens an hour before bed. just soft lamplight. Within 2 weeks, her sleep improved, her mood lifted, her memory became sharper. It wasn't magic, it was rhythm. Here's what most people don't know. Vitamin D synthesis drops 50% after age 80, and low vitamin D is tied to muscle weakness, bone loss, depression, cognitive decline. But it's not just about vitamin D. Light, especially morning light, is what resets the circadian rhythm, and without enough of it, your brain forgets when to wake, your body forgets how to rest. So, what can you do? Here are 5 simple daily habits to support better sleep and stronger circadian rhythm. Get outside within 1 hour of waking, even for 5 minutes. Keep lights dim in the evening. Use warm tone bulbs. Avoid screens 60 to 90 minutes before bed. Sleep in complete darkness. Use blackout curtains if needed. Open blinds during the day. Let natural light in. These small shifts send a big message to your body. You're safe. You're in sync. You can rest. Because here's the truth. The body doesn't just grow old from wear and tear. It grows old when its rhythm breaks. Restore the rhythm. And the body remembers how to heal, how to rest, how to thrive. Part 4. The weight of what was never said. Grief is not just an emotion. It's not a single event. It's a quiet presence that lives in the body, often unspoken, unacknowledged, but deeply felt. By the time someone reaches 80, they've lost so much. A spouse, a sibling, a best friend, sometimes even a child. But in our culture, grief is something we often avoid, push down, ignore. We say things like, "I should be used to it by now. I don't want to burden anyone." Or even, "No one wants to hear about this again." But just because the words aren't said doesn't mean the pain isn't there. In fact, when grief isn't expressed, it doesn't go away, it goes inward, and it takes a toll. Unprocessed grief raises cortisol, the stress hormone. That leads to chronic inflammation. It disrupts digestion, suppresses the immune system, and silently triggers what doctors often miss: depression, anxiety, poor sleep, cognitive fog. It can even contribute to physical symptoms: chest tightness, fatigue, weight loss, because grief is not just emotional, it's physiological. The body holds what the heart cannot say. Let me tell you about George. He was 86. He had lost his wife of 60 years, and yet he never cried. He just said, "It's life." He kept busy, stayed polite, didn't want to make a fuss. But over that year, I watched something shift. He lost weight, 15 pounds. He stopped returning calls, began sleepwalking, not out of confusion, but out of a body looking for something unresolved. His grief didn't vanish. It just got buried. And buried grief doesn't heal. It festers. If we want to age with resilience, we must give space for grief. We must give it words, not just tears, but expression. That might mean journaling, privately processing feelings, talking with a friend who listens without fixing, joining a grief group, yes, even online, speaking with a spiritual guide, a therapist, or someone who can hold space, sitting in silence, letting the memories come and not turning away, because what is expressed can be transformed. What is buried remains. I've noticed something in people who live past 90 with grace. They all share one trait. They know how to feel. They may be quiet. They may not say much, but they have space for their emotions. They allow themselves to remember, to cry, to smile, to tell the story again, even if it's the 50th time. And in doing that, they lighten the body, they unburden the heart, they let go of what was so they can fully live what is, because healing is not always about medication. Sometimes it begins with a whisper, "This hurt me, and that's okay." Part 6. Losing purpose. The body doesn't just live on food and medicine. It lives on meaning. It survives on purpose. You see, As long as the body believes it is needed, it keeps going. But the moment it feels forgotten, unnecessary, unused, that's when it begins to quietly let go. And here's the tricky part. Purpose doesn't need to be grand. You don't have to run a business or volunteer every weekend. Sometimes purpose looks like watering a plant each morning, feeding the birds at dawn, sending a birthday card to a neighbor, baking a pie for someone going through a hard time, watching the children walk home from school. Tiny things, but consistent things, because what matters most isn't scale, it's rhythm. Let me tell you about Ruth. She was 88. She wasn't wealthy, wasn't a marathon walker, didn't travel the world, but she had rhythm. Every Monday she mailed postcards to homebound seniors. On Thursdays she cooked soup for the local shelter, and every day at 4 p.m. she sat by the window and watched the neighborhood kids come home from school. "It gives my day shape," she told me. "It gives me texture." And science backs her up. Studies show that older adults with a clear sense of purpose live up to 7 years longer, have lower rates of Alzheimer's, show stronger immune responses, sleep better, and report greater life satisfaction. And here's why. Purpose gives structure to time. It tells the brain there's something to look forward to. It tells the heart you still matter. It tells the immune system stay strong, there's more to do. So if you feel like you've lost your sense of purpose, ask yourself these 3 questions. What am I looking forward to tomorrow? What am I contributing today? Who would notice if I disappeared? If those questions feel hard to answer, that's okay. It just means it's time to rebuild. Start small. Join a local group, even once a month. Learn a new skill, gardening, painting, letter writing. Volunteer just an hour here and there. Adopt a pet, someone who needs you too. Call one person every week. Tell them you're thinking of them. Each act of purpose becomes a thread, and enough threads, they make a net, a safety net that catches your spirit and keeps it rising. Because the body, it's always listening. It wants a reason to stay, to fight, to heal, to live. And when it finds that reason, amazing things happen. Final reflection, aging with strength, not just survival. Most people don't fade after 80 because of one big event. They fade through quiet erosion, the slow drip of disconnection, stillness, dim light, unspoken sorrow, lost purpose. But here's the gift. Decline is not inevitable, because just as fading happens slowly, so does recovery. One walk, one wave, one handwritten note, one sunrise, one new reason to get up. Let's recap. The 5 silent saboteurs that quietly shorten life after 80. Loss of tiny daily social interactions, overcautious physical inactivity, disruption of light and sleep rhythms, suppressed, unprocessed grief, the erosion of daily purpose. Which one spoke to you the most? Which one reminded you of someone you love? Pick one and act today, because aging is inevitable, but fading is optional.